Good morning, amigos and amigas. This is Jeremy filling in for Rick today as he's got kind of a personal matter. We're going to let him take some time off and handle that. Meanwhile, Max and the crew and I are here to answer all your questions. Max, why don't you jump in with some engineering updates right now? Then I'll hop in with some marketing updates, and then we can go over the highly anticipated answers to the questions everyone's asking. Who are the winners of the Hemi Arcade contest?
All right, sounds good. So quickly, some engineering updates. Pretty much same as usual. We're making a lot of progress on the ZK provability, op-ref, Rust conversion. So we're doing some internal testing of a lot of the end-to-end oxygen versus TBC parity stuff, and then also end-to-end ZK proving with RISC-0 and soon SP1. So working through that, finding some minor bugs, testing out our SnapSync protocol, which we backported basically from opgeth into opref, and also hooking up Oxygen into the SnapSync protocol as well, because now Oxygen having a single state tree of Bitcoin data means you can do that, which is super cool. And despite Oxygen being pretty compute heavy for all the indexing that it does, SnapSync makes it pretty easy to spin up a node with that. So a nice efficiency win there for node runners once we get all of that working and tested. Aside from that, we've been working on some more bug fixes and testing for the formerly Minerify, now Fast Track stuff. So we've been going through and doing code review there. We've also got the VE Hemi reward stuff staged and ready to deploy. So that's going to be happening soon. We're just, we need to get the contract deployed, configured with the old positions, and then have the apps team flip a switch on the UI to change the contract address. So I know everyone's been waiting on that. That is coming out, fingers crossed, hopefully today, if not today, tomorrow. So that's coming super soon. Like Jerry mentioned, we have the Hemi Arcade stuff to go over, so we'll go over that in a minute. We've also been making some improvements to Dave. So we got some minor tweaks and minor bug fixes and stuff like that into Dave, and we've been testing that in our infrastructure. We've also been doing some just general infrastructure deployments, changes, tuning. We're going to be doing a bit more of that over the next day or two here as we're sort of right-sizing some partner infrastructure, some internal infrastructure. And I think those are the big things. We've also been working on the ZK miner. There were some edge cases around nonce handling, especially during network latency or hitting the Hemi RPC limits. So we've been making some improvements there. And we've also been not really much work on the ZK market side. The contracts for that are done, but the UI for that, been making some improvements there with a dedicated backend indexer rather than the web page having to hit the Hemi RPC natively and run into either RPC request limitations or just not being able to get all of the historical data easily in a way that's presentable in some of the ways that we wanted in the UI. For example, the long-term stats and analytics page. So looking forward to doing some public testing of that in the near future, probably next couple of weeks as we get the ZK miner stuff in, figure out our build system for that, because it's very complicated with multiple different GPU proving systems across multiple different GPU compilation backends for multiple platforms. So it's all linear, boring work, but we need to get that done in CI/CD so we can get builds out for that. And we're also spinning up an internal demo of our Hemi in-house decks that we're working on. So it won't be public for a while because we're still adding some features to that before we do the first public testing. That is moving internally. And I think that is pretty much it. So I'll throw it over to Jeremy for marketing, and then we will go through the winners of the Hemi Arcade competition.
All right. Well, on the marketing side, we have a few great things we can point you towards. First of all, I want to say it's really great to see the participation in our BrownFi co-marketing endeavor. We have an amazing pool that you guys can join on BrownFi. We've just crossed over 100,000 total value locked in that pool, and you can check it out right here. I'll put the banner up so you can go ahead and check that pool out. So if you'd like to join that pool, we have incentivized ways for you to earn on chain, put your Bitcoin to work, put your assets to work. Hemi's the way that you can do it. We will be joining with BrownFi next week on a very special Built on Hemi. Check us out on, I think, the 28th. That'll be Friday. We're going to be joining at 8 a.m. in the morning Pacific time, giving our friends across the pond there a chance to join us in their morning time, or their relative evening time, since they're coming at us from the Eastern Asian region. Aside from that, looking forward to having you guys continue to take advantage of everything that we're building for you here. We have some reports that we are looking. I'm highly confident we're going to get those reports reported to you very soon, looking at some of the opportunities that Hemi's building in the engineering side of Hemi Earn, as well as some of the opportunities in the adjacent ecosystems that are building around Hemi and what we're doing. So I'm looking forward to being able to get those to you very soon. We're going to have this staged on the website. And now I can pass it back to Max for, I think, the most highly anticipated part of the show. We're going to find out who won all the prizes. Let's go.
All right, here we go. So I got the results here. Unfortunately, Rick was not able to join us today. This is like probably the worst one for him to miss, because he was obviously tightly involved in planning of the competition, all of the community organization around it. So unfortunately, Rick's not here, but he's here in spirit. So we got a 3-way tie for one of the categories, and then a winner for each of the other two team choice categories, and then a community award. So there's a total of 6 winners out of the 10 total submissions, and everyone who made a submission but did not win, you also still get 2,500 Hemi tokens and still get a Hemi Arcade t-shirt. For all the winners I'm about to announce, you'll get 10,000 Hemi tokens, and you get a special edition Hemi Arcade hoodie and mug. And for the community award, you'll get all of that, plus also a spot in a future hair game session, or hair game season, rather. Sorry. So without further ado, I'm obviously not a game show host. I should have had Jeremy do the theatrics. But so for most original, we have Blind Life Simulator by Alex. It was, if nothing, it was extremely original. So that one was interesting, a lot of fun. We had a great time on stream playing that and trying to figure out how not to die, and then realizing dying was actually how you, I think, win the game. Still not 100% sure. But that was super original. So Blind Life Simulator. Congratulations to Alex. Best on-chain was Blockstep by Nar, or GNAR. I'm going to go with Nar. The way they use Bitcoin randomness for or Bitcoin blocks as the input for the PRNG to generate the game randomness. Super cool, great mechanic. Best, most interesting use of blockchain technology we saw. So that was super cool. And as of the next mainnet update, we will be fixing the get header n precompile, so you'll be able to use the mechanic properly on mainnet. And so looking forward to that. Most fun, this was the one we had the 3-way tie-in. So the first one was Proof of Patience by Deber. That was hilarious. Great overall visual design, very smooth gameplay, and of course, very relevant to Midweek with Max, Hemi, very on theme, and poking fun in a kind and funny, constructive way. So really enjoyed that one. The second was Hemi Chess by Possible.0xFat8, who I think was also going by the name of something Chess Blunders in the chat last week. We included that one. Obviously, chess itself is a well-known game. Putting it on chain's cool, but we also really like the way that they did the back-end server handling for submitting results on chain and not needing to have the user interact with their wallet and pay gas fees on their side, and having that just abstracted, not kind of abstraction, but abstracted and used in the back end. So that was super cool. It was also just well produced. The gameplay was smooth. Despite losing 2 games of chess, everything worked very well in the UI. Everything was nice and clean. and we put it in. We were talking about maybe putting it in the best on-chain category as a runner-up, just due to the back-end handling of user transactions, which is a cool mechanic. But we decided to group that into most fun as well. And then the third under most fun was the one that JCB played on stream, which was Shadowrunner by Valsio. Cool game mechanics. Maybe level 3 or 4, whichever one that was a little hard for being that early in the game, but super cool game, cool mechanics, cool graphics, and we really enjoyed playing that, and we really enjoyed playing all of the games. And so just to give a quick mention of the ones that were not on the list, but that we played on stream, and to thank everyone for their submissions, we had Hemi Hatchling Pixel Puzzle by Funky Sasquatch. That was the one that I was probably the worst at, although I was pretty bad at most of them.
It was a decisive defeat, Max. I'm sorry.
It was, yep. And then we had Idle Kingdom by Alpha. That one is, we will come back to that in a second. And we had the Intern Story by Alex. So Alex had 2 submissions, Blind Life Simulator and the Intern Story. That one was also a lot of fun. I wish we got to finish off and see all the characters. I think we got to day 4 in that one. But super cool graphics, great music. Brotown, unfortunately, we weren't able to play it very well on stream. I think it's more of a mobile game. I was not able to press E, apparently. So
press E, Max. Just press E.
Just press E. So hopefully we'll maybe revisit that in the future. Maybe try to play it on mobile. And we will, as a side note, be doing more of these Hemi Arcade seasons. So if you have any more game ideas, if there's stuff you're still working on that you didn't get to submit in time, definitely save it for the next Hemi Arcade if you want. And we'll be, I'm not sure the cadence yet. We got to plan out what works for everyone on our side, and also probably get some community feedback on the length. We are probably going to be also expanding the categories, because we chose a lot of winners, and it would have been nice maybe to have like a, most Hemi themed, for example, or something like that. So we didn't want to make changes to the rules, after the fact, but we will be adjusting probably the categories at a minimum for the next Hemi Arcade season.
I would definitely say, Max, that after we decided the winners, the only thing I regret was the categories we chose. I think we could, because we knew which games won, but slotting them into the categories didn't always make the sense we would have liked. So we can definitely do better on that. And if people have any other suggestions for something that they would like to see in the way we do this, please, shout out on Discord, because, we'd love to hear it.
Yep, yeah, feedback's very welcome for how we ran the competition, what people would like to see, changes to the rules. Also, sorry, one correction, Hemi Shadowrunner, that was the first one we played. That was the one that I played. That took me a little bit to figure out the flipping to get through the vertical bars. The one that John played on stream was Gravity Flip by Creator. That was the next one I was going to mention. So that's the one where level 3 or level 4 it was ridiculously hard, but that one was super cool graphics. And I think that's it for the list. And so the final one that we have for announcing is the Community Award. And why don't I throw this one over to Jeremy?
First of all, we had no idea how many of you guys were going to be able to submit. And so we had an abundance of games. We were so impressed with everything that we saw. We have decided that in a magnanimous kind of a motion, we're going to go ahead and give a $2,500 Hemi prize to every single participant who submitted a game to us. And on top of that, we're also going to be giving out some special things for them too. You're going to get some merchandise as well. We're going to get some information from you guys on where we can send that stuff. Keep in touch with our moderators in Discord. We'll be able to collect that. I'm sure Joshua's on top of all this right now. Don't look at me. I'm not going to be showing up in your DMs asking you for your address. All right. That's not going to happen. And if somebody does do that, don't fall for that. All right. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Now that we know what you can do, expect us to refine this process and make the contest better, because that's what we want to do, is make the contest better for everybody. And again, things like this wouldn't be such a great success without your passion. So we thank everyone that submitted. We have some amazing stuff for you guys. If you guys want to find out more information about the next contest, be in Hemi Discord, be in tune. We're going to have an announcement out for that. Oh, the community award. Sorry. The community award, by the way, also wins $10,000, a Hemi t-shirt, hoodie, and a mug.
10,000
And
Hemi
it goes-
tokens. Quick
Yeah,
correction.
10,000
And it-
Hemi.
10,000 Hemi tokens, not $10,000. I wish I had $10,000. Alpha for Idle Kingdoms wins the community award. Thank you, Alpha. Idle Kingdom, a great game. It has an ever-expanding perimeter where you can kind of move the kingdom from one area to another, recruit people to the various buildings, and expand them and grow them as you continue to click away. And that won the community award. So thank you, Alpha. Thank you for your submissions. Thank you for your continued support of Hemi from the community side. And thank all of our community members for their great submissions. We had a lot of fun doing this. And, John's been saying this since time out of mind. We want to see people build cool shit on Hemi. And boy, you guys sure went out and did it. Thanks again.
Yeah, that was an absolute blast. I think we went over an hour and a half over the scheduled time in the stream because we were having fun playing games, trying to figure out how to play the games. So that was awesome. We'll definitely be doing this again. Really appreciate everyone who made a submission. And if you didn't win, you're still, like Jeremy said, getting 2,500 Hemi tokens and a Hemi Arcade t-shirt. And we hope you join us for the next competition.
Now, without further ado, let's dig into your questions. You guys have questions. We've got answers. We're going to get right down into them. Alpha asks, the Brownfi team seem to be anonymous, and I noticed that there's an unverified contract and a deployment with privileged admin roles. Would appreciate any insights. Have their smart contracts been audited or verified by the Hemi team?
We have done a first pass on their smart contracts. I think we still have another larger deep dive in the queue, which we'll probably be doing in the next week or two. So high level, we've done a first pass on them. Members of the team know members of their team in person. Or I shouldn't say in person, but they know who is behind them. So it's not an anonymous team, at least from our perspective. I'm not sure what they've put out publicly, but that side of it's not a concern. So at the moment, if you want to be more conservative, you can wait until we do our more in-depth review of it. But on first pass, everything that we looked at looks fine. You did mention a unverified contract on the Explorer. I think that is just an artifact of the way that they did the deployment and maybe one of the contracts, the way that they compiled it, not being submitted correctly to our backend, but we will definitely look into that and get that verified with the team.
All right. Ajit asks, could the Hemi team please share an update on staking rewards? Many community members staked for the maximum duration, specifically for the promised rewards. When can we expect the next distribution and a clear timeline going forward?
So we are getting ready to do the next distribution. Everything's done, just waiting for a couple deployment steps. So it should be fingers crossed today. If not today, definitely tomorrow. It is right at the finish line. As far as going forward, we had a couple of complexities this time that ended up delaying it longer than we would have liked because we had some new positions going out to participants that were a different type of position, and we had to separate them out from the community staking so it wouldn't change the economics of public voluntary staking. And so we had to get some new contracts ready. We had to go through internal review and audit of all of those. So that took longer than we wanted, but going forward, we have all the machinery in place for everything that VE Hemi needs to do for rewards, including the different positions and the separation of their weights, both for governance and for staking reward distribution. So we should be able to do things on a better, more predictable cadence going forward. I'm not sure what that cadence is going to be, but probably somewhere between 6 weeks and 2 months. And probably in the HIPPO that we're going to publish soon for the new payout distribution methodology, we will include a timing commitment to what the timing is going to be going forward now that there's no other technical blockers that we have to get done to do the new type of distribution.
All right. Long
And
die
also,
and poison.
as a reminder,
Oh, go ahead.
anyone who did stake, so from the last point we did the distribution, the new distribution will be from that point all the way to the present. So you haven't missed out on any staking rewards. Obviously, it's been delayed, but you will get rewarded for that entire period from the last distribution till now. So
yeah, rewards are
just a
continuing
little
to accumulate.
Yep.
Yeah. Long die and poison ask, when VBK updates?
Unfortunately, no updates at the moment, but it is still coming. And as soon as I can, I will share updates on it.
Fair enough. Alex asks, why has Relay delisted Hemi? Any chance to see them back? The Hemi's partners page still lists them. I will probably deal with that, but go ahead, Max.
I don't know the specifics on Relay. I believe they delisted a lot of projects. There's sort of a, let me see if I can find, there's one thing that was possibly related to this.
I recall as well that they, they changed protocol parameters in terms of what they listed, and many protocols were delisted as well. It was not just.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the, let's see here. So give me one moment.
Of course.
Trying to find stuff in Slack is never easy.
Yeah.
I don't know what the solution is, but whatever Slack's doing is not the solution.
Parsing search terms amongst many different chats is always a challenge, right?
You know what? It's still better than searching for a Google Doc.
That is true. Or anything in Microsoft, anything. Teams, SharePoint, Outlook. Dear God.
Might as well call it Microsoft Hide Point.
Why can I?
No, Jeremy, that joke did not work.
Okay, here we go. Sorry, this is what I was looking for. So the reason for the Relay delisting was upstream. It was a hyperlane drop support for the Hemi network, as well as, let's see, just as a quick eyeball, I want to say 70 other blockchains. So if you, I don't know how to post a link here. I'm going to send this to Joshua. I'm just going to send this on Slack if you can post this in case anyone's curious. So that was the hyperlane, basically deprecating support for a ton of different chains from Arbitrum Nova, Berachain, BitLayer, Botanix, some other ones people might know.
If you want to check it out, there's the banner there. You can see the announcement from Hyperlane.
Yep. So not quite sure on the reason for that. There's sort of a, and I don't know quite what the root cause of this is, or maybe it's a coincidence and I'm just over analyzing. But it does seem like a lot of the interoperability providers are trying to scale down the number of chains that they support, or even potentially switch business models to something other than being a pure interoperability provider. For example, like what Layer 0 is doing with their Layer 0 chain. Not sure what Hyperlane's roadmap looks like outside of Hyperlane as a interoperability technology, but I think they're doing some other things as well. So the Relay, it wasn't Relay specifically who delisted it, it was Relay was using Hyperlane, and Hyperlane delisted Hemi along with 60, 70 other networks. So unfortunate, there are still other cross-chain solutions. So Layer 0 is obviously supported on the Hemi network. So is CCIP. And there's a couple more bespoke ones for connection with some of the other Bitcoin L2s that are also still active. So it depends what you're bridging, where you're bridging it from, but there are other alternatives. But yeah, Relay was due to upstream Hyperlane dropping support.
All right. Moving along to the next question. Hexushian asks, when previous hair game rewards should be today, maybe, who knows? Sorry.
I think that was a note he left for us.
Read some of the captions. I read the blocking instructions in the script.
So according to the
Max,
block instructions,
win updates. Move to the left. Stretch arm out to the right. Oh.
Is this part of the question?
I don't know. Yeah, well, Max, let me try that again without reading the part I'm not supposed to read. Win previous season hair game rewards.
Well, according to the bracketed comment, it should be today. We're waiting on Safe to fix an issue. Not sure what the Safe issue you're running into is. We've been. I was using a Safe for something last night.
Infura.
Okay.
Yeah, Infura deprecated their IPFS nodes, and that's affecting apps on.
Yeah, the
Safe.
CSV update, the CSV upload app seems to have stopped working, which is too bad because that's one of like their oldest and most reliable and useful Safe apps.
God, I was not aware of that. Okay, so we're the answer is hopefully today, assuming Safe fixes their issue with CSV uploads for batch sending, I suppose. And if there's a long-term issue with Safe, we do have some scripts that we've written. They're very simple. I'm sure there's other people with similar scripts out there that do bulk submissions through Proposer. So if you're still running into the issue in a day or two, if you want to ping us, we can certainly help you with that as well.
I think we've actually written those scripts more than one time.
I think multiple people on the team have each independently written them at some point because they needed them for something. So
When in doubt, write a script. Why not? And if you live
When
in
in
LA,
doubt,
write
duplicate
a
work.
different script, like a screenplay. Everyone in LA has a script, right? They're trying to sell. I go to the gas station, some guy's selling me a script. Hunter asks, when Rick getting married? Now, I don't know if anyone on this call is qualified to answer that, since this is a Rick question, But I'd like to think that there's someone waiting for Rick out there that's looking to find him, that loves him.
I want to know, was that a question or a proposal from the original question?
Oh yeah, wait, is there a ring alongside that question, or?
Is there any ring emoji? I think
Look,
serious
I'm married.
answer. I think Rick is married to the game, so
Yeah,
I don't think we'll see.
He's married to the intern. No, don't say that.
No, certainly not. It would explain the fighting, though. But
Oh. All right. Silly question.
Are you allowed to marry can you legally marry a koala?
in certain parts of the U.S., probably. I won't name which, but they exist. I'm
Definitely
sure.
Florida.
Hey, now.
All right.
probably.
Jokes aside. Alpha asks, and Alpha, didn't you? Okay, I'll ask it anyway. When Mentora Genesis Mint starting? I feel like you know the answer to that, Alpha.
I think that is a question for Alpha, so I'll throw it over to him.
Yeah, Alpha, you wanna tell us in the chat?
What do you mean, WTF?
Oh, well, no, you're on the spot. We asked the question.
What kind of operation?
You're the only one that can answer that question, Alpha. You can't act this way. That's not fair. All right. All right. Well, while Alpha's trying to figure that out, I see another question in the chat, which I can address. It says, from the end is near 1998. I couldn't find any Hemi post about LBank's current Hemi token splash campaign with the 10,000 US dollar tether prize pool, which LBank is actively promoting and running until August 20th. Well, Hemi is one of several tokens that LBank is promoting in this splash campaign, and we're happy that they're promoting it with us. But we have nothing to do with it. And because of that, we haven't tweeted about it. We don't have any control over what other people do with their Hemi tokens or how they promote Hemi tokens with their projects, but we're definitely happy to see it. So if you'd like to interact with LBank and do that, you should do so at your own risk. Make sure you research the platform and ensure that it is safe to do so before interacting with it. And then that should answer your question, I hope.
So yeah, just for clarity, we're not associated with it, although it's cool to see, and it's
Yeah.
sort of organic activity around the Hemi token that Allbank's putting out there. So great to see it, since we aren't formally, it wasn't something that we like did together or co-marketing. We haven't retweeted anything about it, but definitely go check it out. And as always, do your own research. Nothing against Allbank in particular, just as a general rule.
By the way, I think we got the answer from Alpha. It's soon on the Mentor Mint. Soon.tm. Max, I have a question for you. What are the type of features that you're testing as you roll out the ZK marketplace that we're going to be seeing running through the alpha and beta tests very soon here?
I'm glad you asked, Jeremy. Some of this is probably going to sound like a broken record because we have talked about this to some extent previously, but as a quick recap, because the public beta of it is coming relatively soon, and we'd like to get people poking at it, playing around with the ZK miner, kind of running through the full system. If you want to be really ambitious, submitting some ZK proofs to the market. And we'll provide an easy way to do that as sort of a base template that you can use to submit, like, Fibonacci program and things like that. Or it's totally open. You can write your own custom program and submit ZK proofs to the market. But the reason we're building it, there's three main reasons. So the first one is the current ZK markets, for the most part, and this is changing a little bit, but most of the current ZK proving marketplaces are bound to a single ZK proving system. And so to back up a little bit, the way ZK proving works, there's two main approaches. Either A, you can write custom circuits in something like Circom, and that lets you basically, it's kind of the equivalent of, if you were going to write a program, you actually like etch the program into a chip as an ASIC that runs your program, right? It's a lot of work, it's very brittle, but it is the fastest possible ZK way to ZK prove that algorithm if you're doing it intelligently. The second way is what most of the industry is moving towards, especially for really complex stuff like proving an EVM execution with a Bitcoin node embedded in it. Most of the industry for those sorts of complex things, not very, if you have a very contained problem like proving, you own the private key behind a certain public key that corresponds to a Bitcoin address, that's the kind of thing you might write a custom circuit for because it's a very contained problem. The input sizes of the data, it's easy to work with. Something like, run essentially arbitrary code that implements a advanced EVM with a Bitcoin node in it, way too complicated to do as custom circuits. And the problem is you have to redo your custom circuits every time that you do a protocol update or a bug fix. And so the approach that we're taking, along with many other blockchains that are doing ZK proving stuff, is ZK VMs, which is a generalized ZK proving framework where it executes a program on a simulated RISC-V CPU. So it's a reduced instruction set. It's pretty much everything that you can compile to or through LLVM. You can either compile it to x86-64, like what's probably in most of your desktops and laptops, or other ISAs or other instruction sets, including RISC-0, which is a much more simplified instruction set, so it's a lot easier to ZK prove. Because without getting too much into it, for ZK VMs, basically, if you're simulating a CPU, every single additional opcode that the CPU supports is additional complexity for the ZK prover. It's a potential soundness issue if you don't properly constrain it. And depending on the exact design of the ZK VM, the number of potential opcodes can actually make each opcode less efficient, because the way that at least some ZK VMs work is they sort of simulate all of the opcodes at the same time and then sort of shunt off all the ones that weren't actually active during that round. And not a ZK VM designer, but there's trade-offs. There's a reason why RISC-V makes sense for ZK VMs. Anyway, where I was getting with that is there's a lot of different ZK VMs that are different properties. So some of them support even different ISAs from, instead of RISC-0, there's one, or instead of RISC-V, there's ones that support, say, for example, MIPS. But they also have different underlying mathematical constructions. They have different security properties, and each being independent implementations, even if it was a very similar system if two different teams re-implement a certain construction style of a zkVM around a certain architecture. There's a very good chance that if one of them introduced a bug by accident, which caused, say, a security issue because there's maybe some constraint that's not properly bound in one of the opcodes, and you could, say, replace a number with its negative in a certain operand, and that wouldn't be properly checked by the system. And you could use it to manipulate a program execution trace and make a program produce a valid ZK proof, even though the program was not, in fact, executed correctly, and someone maliciously manipulated the execution trace in a way that the zkVM couldn't detect, or the zkVM proving did not properly prevent, is probably a more precise way to say it. But basically, for Hemi, we want to use multiple different zkVMs for implementation diversity, both on the primitives and how they're actually constructed, but also even for similar ones, for that redundancy against there being maybe a soundness issue in one of them that, again, allows execution manipulation. So even if you had two zkVMs and each of them had a soundness bug somewhere in them, even in that case, which is a pretty extreme failure mode, there'd still be a good chance that you couldn't ZK prove the same sort of execution manipulation against both of those. There's ways to get creative if you have two different ways to, say, control program flow arbitrarily. That's kind of all the same bug, even if it's for a different reason. But the point being, we want to use multiple zkVMs. The current marketplaces, generally speaking, only support one single zkVM system. That's not always the case, and there is a movement of some of them towards even ones that are associated with a particular zkVM team to implement support for other zkVMs. But that's the first reason, is we wanted to use at least a minimum of 3 zkVMs, maybe not for the very first release of Hemi ZK proving and ZK settlement to Ethereum, but certainly for like a phase 2 of that. And so we don't want to be bound to a system that only supports one of them or have to use 3 different zkVM proving marketplaces. The second reason is, and again, speaking in generalities, but most of the current zkVM marketplaces do not have good on-chain composability. And what that means is when you look at ZK proving, especially the way that we use it in blockchain, we usually have a very large witness, which is maybe like a block that's being executed plus a bunch of stuff extracted from a Merkle partition tree or something like that. And so there's a ton of data that is needed, as you can think of it basically as the program inputs. And that data is generally either not available on chain, or it's just too much data to be able to serialize practically on chain, and store in a storage slot of a smart contract in a job submission to a market or something. And so what we do with our ZK market, we do support that form of proving, as for anyone who's already used to that methodology. What you're doing today transfers over one-to-one. If you want to do, serialize your own witnesses, pin them to IPFS for workers in the zkVM proving system to grab and then compute. So all of that still works in our ZK marketplace the same way you'd find it in other marketplaces. What we added is the option, as somebody who's paying for ZK proving jobs, you can either define the witness, as is normally done, serialize it, post it to IPFS, or if it's small, post it on chain. There's some use cases where it is small to post on chain. But more interestingly, you can flip it around and you can define proof validity by the statement that it attests to. And so you can say, for example, a ZK proof of, say, the Hemi L2 block state transition function. The witness is going to be a, potentially multiple Hemi blocks, a ZK proof of the extraction of those Hemi blocks from Ethereum DA, and the running of the block derivation algorithm from DA stored on Ethereum, an absence proof that's already been computed by another prover of no conflicting information in DA, or if there's conflicting, showing that the data you extracted has precedence over it based on time and protocol rules. And then a Hemi block itself, or a chunk of Hemi blocks that are being ZK proven in the state transition function for that period of blocks. And also a large, gnarly serialized extraction of the EVM state tree from the current Hemi state at the beginning of that block period, so that can be sort of hinted or faked, quote unquote, into a database that pretends it has access to the full EVM state transition tree, even though it's just the parts that were actually modified during a trace over re-executing those blocks. That's a lot of data, and it's a very complicated serialization, and that data is not available on chain. So as much as we talk about like Bitcoin not being able to see itself, Ethereum can't see things like the intermediate levels of its EVM state tree, for example. And that's one of the things you'd need theoretically to be able to serialize an extraction of its own state tree and put that somewhere. But the thing is, for anything that people are using ZK proving marketplaces for, with the exception of using like trust execution environment style things for private ZK proving, but that's an edge case and not really what most people are using these for. Usually the witness is very large, but it's from public data, and the statement is very small. And so the reason that other marketplaces designed around somebody who's submitting the job to the marketplace, going and serializing the witness for everyone in the network to use, is because it makes everything kind of easy for the marketplace, makes things easy for the miners or whatever you want to call them, the participants in the ZK marketplace who are providing the compute for doing the ZK proving. But it doesn't compose well with on-chain applications. And so we're flipping around and giving protocols the option, which is an option that we as developers of a protocol that's going to be ZK proven wanted to use ourselves. That's why we built it. Is you can define it instead the proof validity by the outcome or by the statement. And usually that statement is very small, like transitioning from Hemi block A to Hemi block B results in the following EVM state root or things like that. And so that's a very small amount of data that's predictably formatted, very easy, very gas efficient to verify on chain. And then the people in the marketplace, in the generic sense, they figure out how to serialize the correct witness for that requested proof. And in reality, what that means is the ZK miner has basically pre-programmed in patterns for getting certain types of data for certain chains. So being able to say, get a serialized witness for an oxygen state transition proof, or get a serialized witness from the Hemi network for a Hemi block SDF or whatever. And people can build on top of that, either with things in the ZK miner or also I'm playing around with this idea. I'm not sure if this is going to be part of the initial release. We don't want to delay the initial release for this feature, but it's something that eventually we'd like to have, is this very simple DSL that lets you define basically what queries to make against what RPCs and how to slice them in such a way that you can construct the witness in a way that's still secure, because you're not running arbitrary. We don't want to create a system where you're running 100 people's arbitrary code as like plugins to the ZK miner, but it still gives people the flexibility for most blockchain use cases to get the data they care about and be able to serialize it in a common format. And so that's nice, from a composability perspective, because it means our protocol can interact directly with the marketplace and buy from the marketplace without having us running like a centralized point of failure daemon that does the witness serialization, puts an IPFS, blah, blah, blah. But the other thing is, so A, it can be automated, but B, it also means that you can set up a system where basically anyone can contribute. So this isn't something that we use for the Hemi network, but it's an interesting mechanic for other projects. Normally, if you wanted to like crowdfund ZK proving of something, and forget where exactly that'd be, useful, but let's say, a DAO wants to prove something about one network for another for a secure cross-chain transaction or something. What this architecture means is anyone or any group of people collectively coordinated by a smart contract or whatever could submit a job to a ZK prover marketplace with basically a template that whoever built the DAO or something specified one time in code, and then years later still works as the way to ZK prove this thing that the protocol cares about, without anyone who's involved in the funding of that needing to understand the complexities of the witness serialization, what program to run, how to submit it to the ZK marketplace. All that can just be folded in and done at the smart contract level. So there could literally be a function call that you call in the DAO contract where you approve a transfer of 1,000 Hemi tokens to the contract. You call this method, it takes your 1,000 Hemi tokens, puts the job up on the ZK marketplace, and everything's completely abstracted away from you. So it's good from a decentralized, like coordinated funding of ZK proofs, if that's interesting to a protocol. The use cases that I can think of are somewhat limited. But it's much more interesting for a protocol like Hemi, where we don't want to be running this separate daemon, which is a point of failure. It could run out of funds. It could, lose connection to the internet. It could crash, whatever. Instead, we want to be able to define the outcome of the ZK proving in code, and then have that live autonomously on the network, just essentially submitting jobs itself to the marketplace. Somebody would be, touching a public tick function or something like that, a permissionless tick function. But then it abstracts away the added infrastructure complexity for teams. It makes the ZK proving process more decentralized because there's not that central choke point of failure of that serialization daemon and job submission daemon that's being run by the team behind a certain project, or having to be run in some decentralized way by the community, and that gets really hard to coordinate. And the third thing was we wanted to create something that is native to the Hemi network for all of our ZK proving stuff. So if it was just that reason, we wouldn't have built our own marketplace, but that's another benefit we get, is that the protocol can interact natively with its own ZK marketplace that we know is not going to randomly change in some unpredicted way or have some third-party fault that causes the infrastructure bandit to go down. Everything's on chain. It's on Hemi. The protocol can talk directly to it. It essentially runs itself in the sense that all interactions between all parties are just smart contract interactions. So as long as the chain's running, the ZK marketplace is running. There's not this extra sort of unknown amorphous cloud of complexity that dictates whether a chain can get ZK proven or not. And part of that's important also for HBitVM because there are certain parts of the HBitVM protocol that are timing dependent. And so, for example, this probably isn't the best example, but there's certain time windows in which data can get published from the Ethereum network to Bitcoin and can get read in from Bitcoin through HVM through a Hemi blockchain derived from future Ethereum blocks to represent that Bitcoin state representing that Ethereum state, right? And there's these interdependencies between the chains that are time dependent, and the tighter we can set those timings, the more, generally speaking, the more secure the protocol is. There's a limit where you get very marginal improvement, but tightening it to a period of a day or 2 days, or for some parts of the protocol maybe 12 hours, is useful for security properties. But if you have a external dependency on a ZK proving marketplace, and that could just go down because they did a botched protocol upgrade or something that's not under your team or the community that's impacted's control, that's another unknown variable that you have to deal with in parameterizing something like HBitVM. Whereas if we have our own native
Speaking
protocol,
of time windows, by the way, and unknowns, we have some more questions. Don't want to. You're on a roll, and
I think that's pretty much it. I'll summarize.
It's interesting. It's interesting stuff. So I don't want to cut you off, but we do have some more questions.
I'm going to go ahead and just summarize for why people should care. So ZK proving marketplace, we control it end to end. We, the Hemi team, the Hemi community. So it's not this like third party thing that could break on us and affect everything else downstream. Two, it's very composable on chain. So if you're developing something that needs to be ZK proven, this is a way to make it much more decentralized. You don't have that single point of failure that you usually do. And then three, it's multi-ZK VM supporting, and people can permissionlessly add support for brand new ZK VM. So it's modular and permissionless, so there is a governance process to mark them as like formally approved if people want to gate participation based on that. So that's the cliff notes.
Okay. Thank you, Max, for that all-encompassing and in-depth review of the ZK marketplace that we are currently in the midst of developing for everyone. We do have some more questions from the team. Alpha wants to know, let me see here. When OG, it wouldn't be midweek with Max if I didn't have that question, right?
It is coming. There's other engineering priorities at the moment. There's, as you can tell from our updates, there's a lot of moving pieces, and there's more moving pieces than there are people on the team. So it is still coming. We have made some progress on it, but it has been delayed for other things that we need to get done for the protocol to A, continue working for things like future Ethereum protocol upgrades, or B, really realize the full vision of what we're trying to do with things like ZK proving, HBitVM, formerly MinerFi, now FastBridge. All those things are with a limited team, you got to budget resources. And so unfortunately, OG role's been demoted under those, and those do have to take precedence. But it is still coming, and hopefully we'll have a better update on that in the next couple of weeks here.
All right. Ajit asks, anyone watched Doomsday, Avengers Doomsday? No, it comes out in December, I believe. So if you have watched it, naughty.
You're a time traveler.
You're breaking the laws of the time-space continuum.
And if you do that, John gets really mad at you. So don't. If you broke in space-time, don't admit it on here.
Causality matters, damn it.
As long as there's a causal correlation. Alpha wants to know, can you share any public metrics on Hemi's financial health, for example, protocol, revenue, fee generation, treasury growth, or other KPIs that help the community understand?
So, I mean, network activity, generally speaking, over the last, 4 to 6 months, has been down versus previous peaks, both for us and just broadly across the ecosystem, except in a few isolated. I mean, obviously Ethereum's an exception, but for a lot of the L2s, there's been a decrease in transaction volume. We are starting to see, actually just recently, transaction volume, let me pull up some metrics here, increase on mainnet. So we got, let's see, over the last few, where is the metric I'm looking for? There's too many things on this page.
Always too many things on the page.
Give me one moment. Where is the total transactions? There we go. That's the chart I was looking for. So we were pretty stagnant between, let me see if I can expand the time frame on this real quick. Yeah, here we go. So since late last year, we've been pretty consistent around depending on the day, and there's spikes when there's market activity because there's people doing arbitrage and things like that. It's been roughly 12 to 16,000 transactions a day, with some peaks during rapid price changes of ETH, Bitcoin, bumping it into the 20, on some days like 22, 25,000 range. Recently, over just the last couple of days, and I think part of this, I've not done a deep dive on this yet. A lot of the activity definitely seems to be related to trading, and I think some of that may be related to BrownFi. And as for whether it's mostly or partially, I don't have the exact metrics yet. Maybe we'll talk about that more next week. But right now, over the last couple of days, we've been hitting 36,000, 53,000. This year's 33,000. So it's a very short sample window so far. And again, I think some of that's driven by the BrownFi activity. Some of that is driven by there have been some macro market movements, but not to the extent that you'd expect, like huge influxes of transactions, like you see when, ETH goes up, 8-10% in a day, that sort of a thing. But yeah, as a metric, certainly promising and useful. Transaction fees generally correlate pretty closely with transaction volume. And so those have been overall down, not too terrible. The other thing is the way that transactions are priced for most L2s, there's exceptions for ones that are like application specific, that are, their real product is something on the chain per se. But generally speaking, still for most L2s, the goal of transaction fees is essentially to pay the chain's own costs for things like, DA, publication of state roots to Ethereum, things like that, and have a little extra buffer that in our case we give to people who are doing VE Hemi staking, but it's not the main health metric of the network. I'd put it that way. Like and obviously this depends on utilization, and there's a limit to how much gas you can put in a block and whatnot. But say Hemi gets 100x users in a day who every block is full, transaction fees are spiking. High transaction fees and like charging users a lot to use the network for congestion is actually generally reflective of there being a bottleneck somewhere in the system. And so while we're, it's almost at scale more of a denial of service prevention mechanism, where if people are spamming the blocks, if people are using the blocks for something, whether that is intentionally, trying to block other users from doing things, or just a lot of organic, legitimate, quote unquote, every transaction on a blockchain is legitimate by the rules of the protocol, right? But where's it going with that? The increase in transaction fees from that sort of activity is not really so that the chain itself can make revenue per se, or so that stakers on the network make revenue from that per se. They should get more from increased activity in general because there's more gas being used on the network. But really, as somebody like designing and maintaining blockchains, what you want to see is a lot of people can use your protocol in a cost-efficient manner, whether that means, that we build out chain builder in certain ways with certain features, that a lot of the traffic on Hemi that's causing transaction fees to spike in this, future scenario would be able to migrate to the L3s, things like that. And so ultimately the protocol revenue, or the protocol, earnings that we would like to see that ultimately flow up through VE Hemi, chain fees, transaction fees are a part of it. But a much bigger part is the things that we're doing on the protocol that should create organic new value from existing and people using them, and from being decentralized. As examples, those are things like any of the uses for VE Hemi staking as economic security. So things like HBit VM covenant emulation, being an HBit VM vault operator, being an operator or a liquidity provider in the formerly MinerFi, now FastBridge protocol that we're working on, decentralized sequencing, and that relates a little more closely to transactions because there's a real relationship between people submitting transactions and mempool and people including them in blocks. Obviously, future stuff like the chain builder infrastructure for shared sequencing, shared DA systems, the ZK miner, ZK proving marketplace. No, I'm not going to go into another tirade about it, but there's components that require participants to be economically bounded for certain things like reliably reporting computational complexity of ZK proofs. All of those things those are the actual, quote unquote, products of the core protocol, not necessarily block space. It is a product of the protocol, but the real value creation is in those different protocols that we're working on building out, testing, launching, and those things should drive, if they work and people like them, those should drive new forms of fee collection from actual value that's getting created, letting people, tunnel Bitcoin through the Hemi network to the Ethereum ecosystem, fully backed by ZK vaults, and then being able to use that and compose it in DeFi. If there's demand and value in doing that, that should create a lot of deposit and withdrawal fees for people churning through the system. And that only works if there's people staking VE Hemi positions as economic collateral to participate and make that system decentralized. Same with the FastBridge, formerly MinerFi system, right? You need a distributed group of economically incentivized participants to run that basically liquidity wrapper around the new HBit VM tunnel system. If people are launching L3s on Hemi and they're using shared sequencing and shared DA, their chains are doing their own unique things. Maybe they're application specific. Maybe they're, custom chains that optimize for a different point in the trade-off between decentralization, speed, security, cost, whatever. They're doing their own thing, creating their own value with their own protocols, choices of, chain configuration parameters, if you will. And that should then flow into, funds value that they are spending in the Hemi ecosystem for that shared sequencing, shared DA system. So those are really the compelling products that, if they work and people like them and get adoption, those should drive a lot of value creation for people who are staking VE Hemi and then restaking into those protocols to participate. So anyway, that's kind of a long-winded explanation. So fees are down, but transactions are increasing as of recent, which is nice to see. But for the health metrics, the things we're excited about are these future items. It's not whether we earned 0.02 or 0.03 ETH in fees over the last 24 hours. It's, okay, if we launch a 8-bit VM and people can bring Bitcoin fully zk secured to the Ethereum ecosystem, what does that generate in value, and how does that flow back into the Hemi ecosystem?
All right. Well, we have maybe time for one more question here.
Let's do it.
Where's Rick? No, Rick's out. He gets a day off. Don't worry, you guys are gonna have to deal with me. All right. I'm not the worst. A user in the chat asks, and this will be the last question because we have to wrap. We're a little bit over. When will our coin market cap details be updated, specifically regarding with the token unlocks, Max?
I'm not on the front lines of that. I think there are some updates we need to make for sure. I will add, and again, I'm not sure where exactly CoinMarketCap's numbers line up with our numbers. But we have definitely released less tokens than the original tokenomics plan indicated. So we do need to make some updates, but also the reality is probably somewhere between what CoinMarketCap is currently showing and what the original tokenomics, what's the right word for it? Not distribution plan, tokenomics, emission schedule. There we go. Originally laid out. So there's, more, I don't know the exact piles and how everything routes, but there's definitely more things in most of the piles that were allowed to be unlocked, but not actually unlocked and put into circulating supply. So we do need to get those updated. I don't know the timeline on those. For the unlocks, the upcoming unlocks that they mentioned, those are all being done through the VE Hemi system. So those are all, or will be, as we get them distributed, visible on chain as well, if you want to use that as a reference. So those will be, we're working on getting everyone's addresses and verifications and everything. We've done the first round of people who got back to us, but for all of the unlocks related to like the investors, some early partners who, put in time helping Hemi in the early days, those unlocks are all going to be done transparently through VE Hemi as a token locking system, and also a way to get them to participate in helping us as we launch some of these protocols, participate in decentralizing them. And like I mentioned, we are separating the rewards from what we're calling voluntary positions of people who chose to lock up or people who are involved in the original Genesis. Do we call it Genesis drop, Genesis distribution? You know what I'm talking about, when everyone was able to go and claim their testnet and mainnet season rewards. So those are all considered voluntary positions. All the other positions that we're enforcing lockups on, those are quote unquote involuntary locked positions, in that they're not allowed to transfer the positions around, they're not fungible. And so those are on different reward systems, and we can also treat them differently from a governance perspective where it's useful.
All right. Well, everyone,
and
that's
Rick
all
will
the
be
time
back.
we have. Yeah, that's all the time we have for this episode of Midweek with Max. I just want to take a second at the end of the show here. A huge shout out to everyone that submitted games to us. Thank you to everybody. Proof of Patience by Deber, Hemi Chess by Possible OX Fat 8, Shadowrunner by Valtio, Blockstep by Nar, Blind Life Simulator by Alex, and Idle Kingdom by Alpha, and all the rest of the games. You guys, you really knocked it out of the park with that.
And I think Joshua has some images to show too for the competition. So we're going to
Yeah, we got some special stuff to show for you. So without further ado. I can continue
StreamYard's just being annoying, so you could keep talking for a second or so.
I can continue to keep talking a little bit, though. Great turnout with those games. I was so impressed to see all the level of detail, the gameplay mechanisms that you guys used. We saw games that were original. We saw games that took on-chain mechanics and turned them into something that was a mixture between like Bomberman and Dance Dance Revolution. We saw games that took some of the classic, some of the oldest games in the world, chess, and put them on chain. There's a lot of logic and back-end stuff that they did to obfuscate the complexity of the blockchain and allow you to have a smooth gameplay experience. This is what blockchain gaming is about, and it's really great to see it happening on Hemi. So thank you all for your wonderful contributions to our robust network.
And I'll say one more thing. I love that these were games first. Like, it's a blockchain, They touched the blockchain, some in, pretty complicated and pretty deep ways, but they were games first. This wasn't, I've got a blockchain, what do I do with it? So that's really cool. And that's what gaming should be, make a fucking game and use the tools that are there rather than make something that's dumb just because, well, it's a blockchain. So that's awesome. Great work.
And we
It
had
definitely
even for the ones that are not on this winners list, we had an absolute blast playing absolutely every one of them, and maybe other than the puzzle game. I joke.
That might have been you.
I think that was a me problem. That was
It's fun for everyone else.
Yeah, everyone else enjoyed watching me suffer, so that's we still won. But even if you're not on this list, we really appreciate you submitting your game. We had tons of fun playing all of them. It was not easy selecting winners, as you can tell by the number of most fun that we included, the number of three-way tie. And we will definitely be doing this again, so stay tuned, and we would love to see what people come up with next time.
All right.
I feel like this is the credits of a movie.
Yeah, I don't know if we have any other photos to show you guys, so unless I get a kick in the pants here, without further ado, I think we can make a round robin on our goodbyes. Max, I'll send it to you first.
All right, awesome. Appreciate everyone for coming out. We will see you. Let me look at my calendar. I don't think we have anything else going on this week, at least on the engineering side. So we will see you, at least for engineering stuff. We'll see you next week on Midweek with Max as usual. And also next week we have our bi-weekly engineering office hours. So if you're building something, whether that's a game you're already getting ready for the next Hemi Arcade, a DeFi protocol, a stats dashboard, interoperable, whatever you're working on, if it's related to blockchain and hopefully to Hemi in some way, we'd love for you to join us and ask any questions. We're happy to talk about anything from smart contracts to protocol design to L3s to pretty much any technical topic you want to cover. We always have a good turnout from our team of different skill sets as well, which is helpful for anyone looking for feedback on a certain design idea or whatever they're throwing around. And I think that is it for scheduling stuff. Stay tuned for some of the ZK market stuff that we're going to start doing some public testing and limited contained incentives. So it's not, testnet open season 2.0, but for people who do want to test stuff out, give feedback. We're especially looking for people who are, willing to poke at the software and find potential bugs, give us quality reports. Definitely stay tuned for that, and we will see everyone next week.
Yep, and don't forget, we're going to have BrownFi built on Hemi to join us next week as well, after Protocol Engineering Hours on Wednesday. So we've got a pretty nice looking week of streams ahead of time. Really excited to see over $100,000 of TVL locked in the BrownFi pools. If you guys want to go ahead and take advantage of those pools, go ahead and check them out. app.brownfi.io/CLAMM/pool. And with that, I want to thank everyone for all their contributions to the Hemi Network. We'll see you on chain.
All right. Thanks all.
All right. Thanks.